What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Huddle on the 6th day of March. Man, it feels like a super quick turnaround from the Super Bowl to March Madness. I mean, we've got to start thinking about the big tournament, one of the best sports events of the calendar year. But we've got a jam-packed show. We're going to talk a little NFL news and notes. We've got more MLB stuff. We talked win totals on last week's show. We're going to get into some more season props coming up, and we've got some college basketball talk as well, and much, much more. Bring in my co-host here, Tony Farmer. Tony, how's it going today, buddy?
It's going well. You're right, man. It's a quick turnaround, but thank God. I hate these random times throughout the year when we have like dead spots in the sports season, and it's nice that we got the tournament coming up.
You had last week sort of described to me your newfound Everton fandom. You took them again with a pick on the show last week. They lost 3-1 at home to West Ham. They outscored them on XG, on expected goals. They potentially should have won that game based on the analytics, based on the stats. How have you recovered? Are you feeling okay after taking your first L?
I don't believe you got to open the show with such a sore subject, Andrew. Why do you got to do that to me, man?
Sorry, man.
My first L, so 1-1 on the soccer handicapping. And for those of you who may be watching the show for the first time, this is a brand new area for me. Andrew's given me some homework. It's been fun. And the moment I knew I was in over my head, Andrew, and let's be real, I always knew I was in over my head with this exercise. But the moment I really knew was last week when you were breaking down the time of possession for me and how I believe it was called the low attack. What was the defense called?
Playing with a low block, meaning putting a ton of your team behind the ball.
Yeah, that whole strategy. I was like, whoa, okay, this is maybe not quite as parallel to hockey as I was hoping, and it seemed a lot more almost matchup based, like stylistic fight, like boxing or UFC or something like that. And so that kind of gave me some pause, and I was like, oh man, I'm in a whole nother world. I got to do some more homework on this.
Yeah, much different game, tons to break down, tons to get into tactically, statistic-wise, all that sort of thing. But I respect your hustle. I respect that you did it. Hey, I respect that you have chosen Everton to be your sort of de facto team that you support. I know it's not, a passion play like the Niners, but I respect that you didn't hitch your wagon to one of the top teams like Manchester City. I've got a soccer pick. I don't mean to toot my own horn, but I got my soccer pick right last week. I've got another one coming up in the show, so stay tuned for that. But first, Tony, let's talk MLB. We addressed our favorite win total picks on last week's show, so go check out that if you have to. If you haven't, we picked 4, 1 over, 1 under each. But let's start talking about sort of award season. And I know it's a long play, but there's some interesting stuff going on in MVP markets, in Rookie of the Year markets, in Cy Young markets. But let's start in MVP markets. Now, I know, especially in the NL, it's Acuna, it's the Dodgers trio that are dominating the odds board. As you can see, a nice little graphic here now. Tatis at 9-1. And then over in the AL, there's some of the usual suspects as well on top of the odds board. Judge plus 550. Soto, new Yankee, who's going to hit dingers in that small ballpark at 6-1. Any sort of names in either league there, Tony, that you think potentially have some real good value that bettors, if they're interested in these markets, should consider?
Yeah, I don't have any bets on the NL side. Those names that you mentioned, you could see any of those guys. You could make a great case for them to win, and that's kind of scaring me away. I'm staying away from it. On the AL side, are we forgetting about Jose Altuve, a guy who's won the AL MVP before? I know he's 33 years old. I know he's an injury concern. I get it. Last year, he played limited number of games, but he's still got the pop. He's still got the stolen bases. He's hitting over 300. This is a guy I feel like if he's healthy, and I know that's a big if, but if he can stay healthy, I feel like he's going to be right in the mix. I like how he finished last season. He hit 335 after the All-Star break. He had 4 home runs in the postseason. He showed you he's still got it. He just needs to stay healthy. So with these bets, guys, shop around because, when you're looking at a game during the regular season, whatever sport it is, you might have a point spread that's off by a half point, 1 point. But when you're looking at these types of markets, you could be looking at a 40-1 versus a 45-1 on another website, on another app. So keep that in mind. But I like Altuve. 40-1 odds are better. I like that one a lot.
Yeah, I love that one. I like Altuve as a ball player. Really good hitter. Clutch as well in big spots throughout the regular season and postseason. In the AL, I won't spend too much time on the AL. I think Vlad Jr. might be worth a look at 25-1. He's produced in seasons past. He's had a couple of rough back-to-back seasons, so potentially there's some big numbers ahead for him this season. In the NL, I mean, there's reasons that Acuna is at the top, and we've got the Dodger trio, but I think Corbin Carroll is potentially worth a look at 18-1. Sixth in the National League in WAR last season, and he's just 23. He does it all. 25 homers, 285 average, 54 steals, 116 runs. D-backs, exciting team. So I do think that there is some good potential value there on Corbin Carroll. What about Cy Young? Anything you like in either league there?
How about Max Fried on the NL side with the Braves? He's obviously going to be getting a ton of run support with that Braves offense. Since 2020, this guy's never had a whip, walks and hits per innings pitched. He's never had a whip above 1.13. He's another one, just like with Altuve, he just needs to stay healthy. He only had 14 starts last year, but looked great in those 14 starts. I believe he only had one loss last year. And so this is a guy who needs to put it together, needs to stay healthy. You're seeing a trend here. When I look at these markets and I'm looking for these medium to long range options, give me a guy who is under the radar because he struggled to stay healthy, and I've got a path for him to stay healthy, and you can get good odds, good value because he missed some games the prior year. So give me Max Fried on the NL side. And Andrew, at the risk of completely interrupting this segment here on MLB Awards, I've got to ask you, because I brought up Altuve earlier. We've talked so much about conspiracy theories on this show. How about the Jose Altuve T-shirt? Did he have something under his shirt after hitting the game-winning home run? I got to hear your opinion on that one, because I've got a strong opinion on that one.
I mean, I remember that happening. I remember watching the highlight, and my gut instinct was that, yes, he clearly has something, because at the time, during that whole Astros run, I was on the side of these guys are cheaters. These guys are doing something to give themselves an edge. So I was fully on board with that conspiracy, to be honest. But I've sort of softened in recent seasons there with that team, with that franchise. Again, like I alluded to earlier, I kind of like Altuve now. I love Yordan Alvarez in that team. I love Kyle Tucker as well. So I've sort of softened my stance on that. What about you?
Yeah, I've softened my anger toward the Astros and kind of come around to, a lot of other teams were doing this and things like that. But in terms of did he have some sort of device under his shirt? How can you buy the whole, what my wife didn't want me to take my shirt off?
Yes.
It just seemed so hokey. And I saw nervousness in that guy's face. As someone who plays poker, I saw nervousness in his face when the reporter brought that up. So that's a fun conspiracy theory we haven't talked about on this show yet. But yeah, that's a good one.
Over in the American League Cy Young markets, Garrett Cole is at the top of the odds board, deservedly so. Guy's a stud, plus 625. Gossman, same division with the Jays, plus 650 for Amber Valdez there, speaking of the Astros. Corbin Burns, new Baltimore Oriole, that's a real good get for them, and on and on. But at 12-1 there, I kind of do like George Kirby. This guy just turned 26. He's pitched really well in his first two seasons in the bigs. Last season, he put together a 4.4 WAR season. He doesn't walk anybody, and he's got a real good mix of pitches in his arsenal. I just like the trajectory he's on. So potentially another big season from him there, and a name to keep an eye on in those Cy Young markets. Anything from Rookie of the Year markets for you? It's a tough one this year. But any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, it's a market I just traditionally haven't got into just because there's so much uncertainty. You got guys coming over from overseas. You're
Mm.
not sure. There's some guys you're pretty sure they're gonna start the season on the team, but I'm not 100% sure. They might be a midseason call up. So it's a market that I've stayed away from. So it's not something I've got a close eye on. There could be some value there that I'm missing, and I'm throwing the baby out with the bathwater, and I should be paying more attention to it. How about yourself? Anybody you like there?
Yeah, I mean, you talked about potentially players coming overseas, and in the National League, I know Yamamoto is getting all the love there in National League markets, but I like Jackson Chourio in Milwaukee. He has been a very highly touted prospect in their system for, about a couple of years now. He's really, really good in Double-A ball last year before having a quick cup of coffee in Triple-A. Fangraphs ranks him at number 3 on their top 100 prospects board, so I'm hoping we get a really good and thorough look at him with the big club this season, but I potentially think there's some good value there around Jackson Chourio with the Milwaukee Brewers in the National League. But again, Yamamoto is the hot name. He's on top of the odds board, and for good reason. I mean, this guy is dazzling in some of his appearances in preseason baseball. Absolutely. I know you wanted to talk. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I got a couple potential manager of the year picks.
Bring it on.
Just because everybody's all over the Orioles. How about Aaron Boone, 12-1-ish, Alex Cora, 14-1-ish. I think those are good bets just because, people are focused on the Orioles. If the Red Sox do something, I'm not convinced they will. I could definitely see them having a really rough season. But if they could turn it around and have a good season, Alex Cora, I think, is a great manager. Aaron Boone at 12-1 with that new lineup with Soto in the middle of it. Don't be surprised if the Yankees win the AL East, and he's looking good for that award.
Yeah, good shout there with Boone. I am not on board with the Red Sox this year at all. I think potentially they're in the bottom of that AL East. They did surprise me last year. I thought they were going to be much worse than what we saw with them. They had a couple good spells throughout the season, but I think tough season ahead for that team, and little to no investment from the ownership group there as well. Very bizarre what's going on with Boston. Speaking of last year, I wanted to touch on a couple things. Now, remember last year, Tony, we had the Tampa Bay Rays start absolutely blazing hot out of the gate there. I believe they won 13 in a row. They had a wicked first month there. And then on the flip side of that was, of course, the Oakland A's. Terrible season from them, full stop, but a terrible beginning to the season. 6-23 in their first month. So glance into your crystal ball, and we'll start with the Oakland A's. Who is a team that you could see in 2024 potentially replicating the futility of the Oakland A's last year?
I got to be honest. I've got a team for you, but they were so bad last year that I don't know if anybody can replicate it. I remember their ERA was like in the 7s and 8s, their team ERA for the longest time. I mean, all the analytics, they were just a bad team. But if I had to pick a team that could come close, a team that you could profit on, having a tough losing streak to start the season, something like that. How about the Angels? Losing Shohei, they lost some guys like Moustakas, Gio Urshel, David Fletcher, who weren't super productive, but nobody else on the team really was besides Trout and Shohei. So I don't know what the identity of this team is going to be outside of Trout. And I could just see this being a really rough season for them. Wouldn't be surprised if they started off, 5-12, 5-15, something like that to start the season.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one for the Halos, man. And God bless Mike Trout, incredible ball player. You know he's going to find himself on the IL at some point. But yeah, tough days ahead for the Angels. My sort of pick, and same thing, this is not a good ball team that I'm about to pitch here, so it's not a hot take or anything. But stay tuned for my second team in a minute. But for my potential sluggish, horrible start, it's the Colorado Rockies. They open with 7 straight on the road and 13 of 19 away from Coors. And traditionally, this team just doesn't get it done on the road. They're buoyed by that thin air at Coors Field. They also go up against a lot of good ball teams to start. 7 versus the D-backs. They play at Wrigley for 3, the Rays, at the Jays, at the Phillies, and then they get the Mariners, Padres, and Astros. So not a great start for the Rockies. Definitely looks like a team to fade there in the first month. Now, the flip side to that is, of course, we had the Tampa Bay Rays last year. They started out 13-0, first month 23-6. So is there a team that you think could replicate that sort of trajectory or that sort of hot start in 2024?
Yeah, while everybody's talking about the Dodgers, rightfully so, all the offseason moves, the power in that lineup, the starting pitchers, I think we're forgetting about the Atlanta Braves a little bit. I mean, they showed us a lot last season. Really good team. I love the addition of Jared Kelenic coming over from Seattle, a guy who doesn't have, eye-popping numbers. He hit 253 last year, 11 home runs, 13 stolen bases, but 288 after the All-Star break. I love that. And in the 8th or 9th inning, the guy hit 301. So you put this guy who's clutch in this lineup where he doesn't have to be, the main ingredient of this lineup, and he can kind of be an afterthought. Love that addition. He's got a nice glove, too. He can play all 3 outfield positions. And obviously Acuna. We know about the rest of this Braves team. So, yeah, wouldn't be shocked to see them get off to a hot start and maybe even end the season with a better record than the Dodgers.
Yep, good call. I wouldn't be surprised with that either. Mine, potentially a bit of a hot take. I got to be perfectly honest here, and I cheated a little bit. So, as opposed to looking at the Rays, remember last year when the Pittsburgh Pirates had a super hot start and they were, on top of the money standings for bettors after the first month? They started 20-8. Just a bettor's dream. So I'm looking at it from that angle. And I got to preface this by saying that I'm a pretty big fan of Riley Green, Spencer Torkelson, Tarek Skubal. Colt Keith is one of the highly touted prospects in their system and has a lot of pop in the lefty bat. So I'm looking at the Detroit Tigers as a potential team that bettors should be looking at in that first month. I'm not suggesting this team rattles off 13 straight to start the season, but this team is going to do some damage in the first month. They open with 2 favorable road series at the White Sox and then at the New York Mets. Both teams going to be pretty bad. They play Oakland at home, 7 against the Twins. They host the Royals, so some good matchups in the first month there, in April and the last couple days of March. Not a 23-win month or anything, but I think by the end of April, this team could be on the top of the money standings when we look back. So bookmark that, Tony. We'll come back to it in a few weeks here once the MLB season is in full swing, and I think we'll find that I've been correct.
I like it. That's a good one. Going deep for that one. Nice work, Andrew.
Going deep. But again, I got an irrational fondness for like a lot of those prospects that have come up through the Tigers system, like Riley Green, like Spencer Torkelson. But I digress. Over to the NFL now. Obviously, a couple big news items from around the National Football League this week. Russell Wilson cut. Denver eating a ton of money in salary. So since Manning won with the Broncos, Tony, they've now gone through guys like Paxton Lynch, like Drew Lock, Brock Osweiler, Trevor Siemian, Case Keenum, Joe Flacco, Teddy Bridgewater. Where does this team go in that quarterback position now?
Man, could you see them getting a rookie quarterback in the draft? I wouldn't be surprised there. You're right. Some of those names that you mentioned, and it's funny because when did all this bad quarterback play start? It's when Elway became a member of the front office, right? That's where it started. And it was like, he's going to value getting a good quarterback. He might be able to, almost some quasi scouting and pick out a good quarterback to lead this franchise. And gosh, that did not turn out too well at all. But yeah, I could see Denver getting a quarterback in the draft. I'm surprised there hasn't been more like Kirk Cousins rumors with Denver. It seems pretty solid that it seems like he's going to be going to Atlanta. Reports have come out that, he's planning on moving his family there and stuff. But I mean, that would be a great fit. I feel like Cousins in Denver, but I don't think it's very realistic at this point. So if I had to bet right now, I'd say maybe a quarterback in the draft for them.
Let's look at the other side now, and let's look at Russell Wilson. Any teams on your radar that might be a good potential home for him?
How about the Steelers? We look at Russ. Where has he thrived with Pete Carroll, players coach, right? Where did he struggle bad in Denver with a coach who's kind of hard nosed? And Mike Tomlin is the epitome of a players coach. I could see him pairing up with Tomlin really well, a good defense for all the reasons that Russell Wilson was supposed to work out in Denver. Hey, you've got a team with a good defense, young receivers. He can come in, be a leader, all this stuff. Those pieces are in place in Pittsburgh, and I could see that working out. Problem is, they've got a couple quarterbacks on their roster, young quarterbacks who they seem to like. So I don't know if it's going to happen. And the other one I'll throw out again, it seems like Cousins is going to Atlanta. But if he wasn't, I think Atlanta would be a really good fit for Russell Wilson, and I could see him winning some games there as well. How about you, man?
I had the Steelers as well, man. Kenny Pickett, just not good enough. There are some good skill position pieces on that team already. Sort of just feels like they are a quarterback away. And Russ, I think, could potentially add a jolt to the team. And like you were talking about, man, Mike Tomlin could get something out of the guy, I think. It's clear Peyton hated the dude. I don't know why. I don't know where that friction was in those horrible days in Denver. So maybe he could land on his feet with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I've got a very, very good trivia question for you, and I'm putting you on the spot here. We did not talk about this beforehand or anything. 3 NFL teams, 3 NFL franchises have never had a first overall draft pick. Name those 3 teams.
Oh, wow. 3 teams have never had a first overall draft pick. So they've done really well. Cowboys?
No, I mean Troy Aikman back in the day.
Oh yeah, late 80s. Yep. Okay. Green Bay?
It's a good guess. I would have thought that as well, but no. You got to go back, way back for them, like back into the 50s, but they did have one.
All right. Steelers?
No.
Oh, we're 0-3.
Again, you got to go back in the day. And these are, it's hilarious because these are the same teams that Steve had guessed as well. I like the logic. I like the thought. I was actually surprised that those were incorrect, but no.
Oh, wait. Never in their history. So I could go potentially expansion teams here, like younger teams. Maybe this is where we're going here. Jaguars?
No.
Oh, Trevor Lawrence. That was he was the number 1 pick, right? Yeah, gotcha. Okay. All right, my last guess, Panthers?
No.
What do we got, man? That was ugly.
So it is the Baltimore Ravens, the Denver Broncos, and the Seattle Seahawks.
Wow. Okay. That's a great question. That is a great bar trivia question. I love
right?
that.
I thought that one was a good one as well. Some other NFL news and notes, obviously, Jason Kelce retirement. A lot of have you ever seen an offensive lineman retire with that much sort of fanfare?
I don't think so, man. And you get it. There's, he's capitalizing on the Travis Kelce hype, and he's got the podcast, and he's lovable, and he's taking his shirt off in the press box. So I get it. But yeah, that's a lot of hype for him. He's someone who I think, obviously, I respected more later in his career. The whole tush push thing. He's, the main reason for that. Going to be interesting, by the way, to see how often the Eagles still do that in the future. But yeah, good for him to retire. Looks like a guy that's going to have a lot of fun in retirement. I don't think we're done hearing about him in the media. But you're right, man. That was a lot of fanfare for an offensive lineman, but, fairly deservedly so, I'd say.
I would agree. I was thinking about it, though. Like, I don't know if my question should be, where do the Kelces rank in, like, the all-time sports brothers hierarchy? But rather, like, who are some of those best sports brother combinations that we've seen either active or throughout history. Do you have any off the top of your head?
All right, off the top, Eli and Peyton I've got to be at the top of the list or toward the top of the list. Sticking with the NFL, Nick and Joey Bosa, of course.
Yeah.
Active. They're up there. By the way, is there an outside shot the 49ers could get Joey Bosa on their team this year? Could you imagine that? Especially with the salary cap going up. I mean, that would be a lot of fun to watch, to see those brothers on the defensive ends.
100%.
Oh, that would be so fun.
Yeah.
How about baseball? Pedro and Ramon Martinez. Ramon Martinez had over 100 wins, a sub-4 ERA. Obviously, Pedro by far overshadowed him. I got a NASCAR one for you. Two NASCAR Hall of Famers. Bobby Labonte and Terry Labonte, both in the NASCAR Hall of Fame. Probably 20-ish wins apiece for them in their career. Tiki and Ronnie Barber.
Love that one. Love that one.
And then how about Jose Canseco and Mark McGwire?
The Bash Brothers.
Bash Brothers.
Love that one.
You didn't say they had to be genetic or biological, so I'm going to throw that one out there at you too.
Do you remember Jose's brother, like actual brother, playing in the big leagues though? I think with St. Louis, Ozzie Canseco.
Oh my gosh, I do.
I mean, he never amounted to anything. I think he was a below average player, but he was like, I had his baseball card back in the day as well. Ozzie Canseco. I think it was the Cardinals. I'll have to dig into that. But anyway.
I forgot about him. Wow.
I got some ones for you here. There's a few good ones in the NHL. So the Hughes brothers in the NHL. There's Quinn, Jack, and I think Luke in the NHL. There's also the Tkachuk brothers. They're like Panthers in Ottawa. They're really good. The Seager brothers in baseball. Corey, 32.2 WAR, and Kyle Seager, 35.2 WAR. He's retired. The DiMaggio brothers, obviously Jolt and Joe DiMaggio, 82.6 career WAR. Dom, a respectable 34.6. And then Vince DiMaggio, 19 WAR. In soccer, I'm going to go with the Torre brothers. That's Yaya and Colo. I hated the Nevilles, so Phil and Gary get no respect for me. And then in football again, how about the Watt brothers?
Oh, I forgot about them. How could we forget the Watts? Absolutely. And how about, coaches, but Jim and John Harbaugh too. Yep,
the Harbaugh brothers, a good one there. So yeah, mad respect for Jason Kelce. He'll be missed around the league, obviously missed among diehard Eagles fans, but I hope he enjoys retirement. And you're right, I don't think we're going to hear the last of him quite yet. Let's get over to college hoops here, Tony. We've got, some of the smaller conferences have started conference play. We've got some of the big boys coming up later throughout the next few days. But are there any teams potentially, whether the conference is big, whether the conference is small, that bettors should potentially be paying attention to for conference tournament, whether it's game by game or whether it's to win those conference tournaments?
Yeah, I got two for you to keep in mind. Everybody's favorite conference, the Big Sky Conference.
Yeah,
it looks like it's going to be a 3-horse race. Let me break it down for you. We got Eastern Washington; they're kind of the favorite, plus 200 to win the tournament. Montana plus 310, and then Weber State plus 300. I like Weber State here. All three of these teams finished the season pretty strongly on paper. Weber State went 8-2, looked really strong. Eastern Washington finished the season 8-2, but I think that's a bit of a mirage. They barely beat Montana State. They barely beat Sacramento State, two very bad teams. And then Montana went 7-3 to finish the season, but they lost twice to Eastern Washington. So that's not what you want to see headed into a conference tournament. They've got Dylan Jones. This guy took over the tournament last year, 20 points per game, 10 rebounds per game. And so this is a team that I like at plus 300 in this 3-horse race.
Some crazy against the spread teams this year in college hoops. Just up and down the standings. Minnesota, 24-5 ATS. USF, 18-6-3. Richmond, 19-8-2. CSU Northridge, 20-9. Stony Brook, 28-2. South Carolina, 21-8 ATS. Texas A&M Corpus Christi, 18-6-1 ATS. And one of the best fades in all of college basketball, Pacific, a paltry 6-23 against the spread, Tony. So some really eye-opening teams there that have been kind to bettors throughout the season. I've got a college hoops pick coming up from tonight's slate, but let's get right into the picks, Tony. Lead us off here. I think you're taking a close look at the NHL board tonight, but what do you got on tap for your first pick?
Absolutely. How about the Ducks in the NHL against the Senators? Money line plus 135. Senators have 2 goalies who are questionable. Forsberg has that lower body injury, groin injury that he's struggled with. They say he's traveling with the team, but may not be 100%. Ottawa's just the hotter team right now. Ottawa has lost 4 straight. Ducks have won 2 of their last 3. So if you're going to give me a dog on the money line, I'll take it. Let me go back to our last segment though, Andrew. I got another team to keep an eye on. How about UNC Asheville plus 330 to win their conference tournament? High Point is minus 120 is the favorite there. So I wanted to make sure and not forget that. What picks you got for us, brother?
I'm going to start in college hoops there, and I talked about them. Minnesota, they host Indiana tonight. 5.5 point faves in that one. So you will not find, like I alluded to, a more reliable spread bet than Minnesota in college basketball right now. Now, granted, since this is my first formal college basketball bet, I will not be surprised if I absolutely derail the Gopher train. Gophers ridiculous 24-5 against the spread this season, so I need to get on the second. Bit of a revenge spot here for Minnesota. Indiana, while not particularly good this season, beat them by 12 at home back in January, covering as 4.5 point chalk in that one. So hopefully the guys use that as good bulletin board material for tonight's game. And this being back in Minnesota, worth noting just how good they are at home. 2-7 straight up on the road, but a really strong 16-3 straight up at home. Overall, Ken Palm numbers do favor the Gophers when comparing these two, and the Gophers need to bounce back for their betters. They failed to cover against Penn State in their last game, so give me the Gophers tonight.
Another NHL pick. There's 3 on the slate tonight. I've got a bet in all 3 for you. Another dog, Red Wings, plus 165 on the money line. I think this is a good value play. These 2 teams, Red Wings and Avalanche, played just a couple weeks ago, February 22nd. Red Wings won 2-1. So you're going to give me plus 165 value on this team that won very recently. Detroit's got a little bit of a rest advantage. Playing March 4th versus March 2nd. You know I like that rest advantage with these NHL picks. And the Detroit is 6-2 over their last 8 games, so they're pretty hot as well. So give me the Red Wings on the upset tonight.
The most important game of the night, clearly, maybe the most important sporting event in March, is the Orlando Magic at the Washington Wizards. Wizards 7.5 point home dogs, but give me the Orlando Magic in this one. Washington is just an atrocious basketball team, and that's all we really need to know here. I could just stop this thing right now. 9-52 straight up. Though that said, they are an almost respectable 28-31-2 against the spread, but whatever. The Magic have already beaten the Wiz 3 times by 8, 5, and 19 points, so they look to finish off the season sweep tonight. 2-1 against the number in those previous games. Not a huge deal, but Bagley is going to miss this one. Not a game changer, but he's at 11-6 on the season. And the Magic are on a nice little run lately. 4-game winning streak, both straight up and ATS. They've won 9 of 11. They're blowing teams away too. In their little win streak, they beat Charlotte by 12, Detroit by 22, Utah by 8, and Brooklyn by 27. So yeah, give me the Magic tonight in the NBA.
All right, last NHL pick for you. Got some chalk for you, Chalk Ninja. Maple Leafs minus 185 on the money line. I think they're simply just a better team, and this is a revenge game. They've lost 2 straight times to the Sabres this season, and the last time they lost was an ugly 9-3 loss back on December 21st. Buffalo piled it on in that game, so I think Toronto's going to have a little bit of revenge on their mind, and they're hot right now. They're 9-2 in their last 11 games. So give me Toronto. I'm not going to get cute with the puck line. Give me Toronto on the money line tonight.
Yeah, stay away from hockey puck lines, man. That's a recipe for disaster. Over in the Premier League, as a Tottenham fan, I hate even suggesting this, but Arsenal might very well be the best team in the league. Title race is absolutely insane right now. 11 games left. Liverpool on 63 points, City on 62, Arsenal on 61. But Arsenal is potentially playing like the best of the bunch. And because they are scoring with so much ease in their games, I do like them over 2.5. Since the beginning of 2024, Arsenal has won all 7 Premier League games they've played. They have scored 31 goals and conceded just 3. Absolutely steamrolling teams. And Brentford has been struggling. Not much buzz to the Bees this season. 15th in the table Just 3 wins and 1 draw in their last 16 games. Absolutely rough season for them. I think Arsenal continues to widen their goal differential, and we see another beatdown this weekend. So I am on Arsenal over 2.5 goals in this one at home. So there you go, 6 picks for tonight and the weekend ahead. One thing I did want to mention, though, Tony, we would be remiss if we did not talk about the Oscars. They are this weekend, I believe, Sunday night. We've sort of talked about movies in the past here on the show, but are you a big movie guy? Are you more of a TV guy?
I'd say it's like 50-50. The thing with me is I just don't keep up with like the newer movies. Like I appreciate films as much as the average person, maybe even a little more, but I'm not someone that's like heard of or watched all these like films that are up for nominations and stuff like that. I started Oppenheimer, and it's not that I stopped watching it because I wasn't enjoying it. I was on a flight and the flight ended, so I just never got around to finishing that one. But that's probably, I'm guessing, one of the few movies that's up for an award this weekend that I've seen.
Oppenheimer, maybe not a great movie to watch on a plane. I'll just put that out there. It's a really good theater experience. I thought, maybe you could watch it at home on one of the 12 TVs you've picked up on the side of the road. But best picture candidates this year. And to be honest, there's not a ton of value up and down Oscars markets this year. There are a couple, though, and I'll get to those in a second. But Best Picture, so Oppenheimer, minus 8,000 to win Best Picture this year. Then we've got Poor Things at 20-1, The Holdovers, plus 2,500, The Zone of Interest, Anatomy of a Fall, Barbie, Killers of the Flower Moon, American Fiction, Maestro, and Past Lives. I've only seen 1, 2, 3, 4.5 of those movies. I watched half of Maestro. I wasn't really feeling it, so I haven't finished it. How about you? I know you've watched Killers of the Flower Moon. Is that the only one you've watched?
Yeah, that's the only one I've watched start to finish on that list there. I'm going to throw one at you. It is not up for an Academy Award. It is not being talked about right now. But you've got an intellectual side, Andrew. So I've got to ask if you've seen My Octopus Teacher on Netflix.
I have not seen that. No.
Right,
I know it exists.
Let me sell it to you. So this guy is a free diver. He goes down into the ocean every single day and has an interaction with the same exact octopus every single day and captures it all on video. So you see their relationship develop over time, and it's called My Octopus Teacher because this octopus teaches him things about life, etc. So it's really good. Everybody that I've recommended it to thanks me and enjoys it. So I wanted to put that one on your radar.
Hey, I'll check it out. If it's a recommendation from you, I will definitely check that out. Bit of a weird concept, like a diver that gets taught things by an octopus, but I'll buy it. I'll check it out.
Right.
It's good that you have seen Killers of the Flower Moon, though, because that's one of the awards I wanted to address, where bettors, if you're going to bet Oscars, you might find some value. So it's in the Best Actress category, and it's Lily Gladstone. When I watched that movie, that was my one takeaway, is that, holy crap, she's clearly going to win Best Actress. And she's at minus 160, which I think is some pretty good value. Emma Stone is there in Poor Things at plus 120, sort of right behind her. But for me, and I haven't seen Poor Things, so I don't really know, but for me, Lily Gladstone in that, definitely worth a bet.
I like it. Now compare it to your 3 bets that you just gave us, your 3 picks. What's your level of conviction on her with those 3 picks that you gave us for tonight? Coming up.
That's a good question. I would put it 3rd on that list. So Arsenal, I have the strongest conviction in, the Minnesota Golden Gophers next, and then I'm going to go Lily Gladstone, and then the Orlando Magic. But then the second one here, Tony, is in the Best Animated Feature category. And there's Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse at minus 160. Then there's The Boy and the Heron at plus 120. So I've seen both of these. I really, really like both of these movies. Both are really good for their own reasons. But I think potentially there's value at plus 120 on The Boy and the Heron. Really good movie. It's from a famous Japanese animation studio that has been banging out classic movies for decades. And the creator, Hayao Miyazaki, I think this might be his last movie. This could be his swan song to lean into another bird pun for this. So I think potentially the Academy does him a little bit of a favor. He's won Best Pictures for his work before, so this would not be the first time. But if this is indeed his last movie, I think potentially there's good value on The Boy and the Heron at plus 120. But if you do really like the Spider-Man movie, which is also a really good movie, then there's still good value on that at minus 160.
I like it. I like it. I wasn't planning on watching the awards, but now I might. It's on my radar now, at least.
Based on the odds in literally almost every category, Oppenheimer is running away from this thing. Like I said, there's not a ton of value, but those two categories, I think, could be worth a sprinkle on for bettors if you're into that. But whatever you find folks do with your Oscar bets or with your college basketball or NBA or NHL bets tonight, best of luck. Tony, any parting words for the folks at home?
No, I mean, I'm getting ready for March Madness. I'll give you some parting words real quick. When that tournament rolls around, don't blow your bankroll on the first couple days of the tournament. Be cautious. Take it easy out there, folks.
I may or may not have done that in the past, but those are definitely wise words. And it should be noted here, Tony, that throughout March Madness, we will be going live on X Spaces before tip-off, sort of talking about the games, talking about the day's board, talking about futures. So every day that there are games and throughout the day, we'll be going live. And we've got some special guests lined up as well that we will be talking college hoops with. So stay tuned for those. The first one, I believe, will be Selection Sunday. So me and Tony will be live on X Spaces for that. But thanks for watching. Whatever you folks do with your bets, best of luck. And we'll see you next week on The Huddle.